Guten Abend.
Hello, that was like a horror movie intro.
It was something like that.
I thought about posing like this, like, ah!
Johnny Darko, welcome to the channel. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me here, but John will suffice. Thank you.
Okay, John. It's John then.
Yes.
How was the day in Berlin?
It was actually, it was quite nice. I mean, it's just been lovely weather. I've been out. I did manage to get out on my bike for 20 minutes, but as you already know, I spent most of the day setting up my camera here so that I didn't look terrible on a live stream. I spent hours like making sure the lighting is kind of sort of halfway acceptable. So we will see if it is or not. I don't know. I mean, yeah.
So you're a very experienced, very, very successful YouTuber, but you're not so common with live streams, right? At least
no, it's not. It's really not. You're my experiment, Michael, to see what happens.
Experimental grounds. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I don't do them, and I probably still won't. But I guess I know you've asked me several times in the past to do this, and I've said to you, Michael, thank you, but no. And I know I explained to you why. The reason I decided it was yes was because I've just passed 300,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I thought, no, John, don't be a dick. Pay it forward, or pay it, so be a guest on somebody else's thing, and like give something back to other people. So I'm doing a video with somebody else in a few weeks. I'm not going to say who, but that's not a live stream. This is yeah, this is live, right?
What we want to do here is, in a way, loosely talk about music, medias, vinyl, streaming, and also, of course, your specific approach to, for example, vinyl, and your favorite records in a way, right? Your favorite music genre. And let's start with the question: is there a distinctive way, a distinctive choice when you have the opportunities between a CD, an SACD maybe, vinyl and streaming? Are there artists where you say, oh no, I want him, I want on vinyl, and why is that, if so?
This is a good question. So let's get SACDs out of the way. I never buy them because the music I like isn't really available on SACD, not at all. It's extremely niche and there's not very much out there. Although I did buy 2 hybrid CDs last week from Intervention Records in the USA, the Matthew Sweet reissues. I've already got them on vinyl, and I thought, no, I want these on CD as well. And this seems to be a bit of a theme for me in the last few years. It's just to buy it on both, just to cover off both bases, so I can rip the CD and then play the vinyl whenever I want to. If I can afford to do that, I will buy both. But it's kind of weird. Like a lot of electronic music, especially the club focused stuff, doesn't come out on CD anymore. Right. You get a vinyl or a download. So I'm not a big fan of downloads.
The vinyl, right?
Sometimes yes,
the vinyl.
You do from Bandcamp. You get the download anyway. So I'll usually buy the vinyl. So a lot of sort of the more clubby, more contemporary end of electronic music that I buy, I will buy on vinyl. And then also things like anything David Bowie, I'll buy on vinyl. Anything Talking Heads. So a lot of the artists that were big during the vinyl era, and I have to quote Steve Guttenberg here, who said like vinyl is the original language of many of these records. So I buy those on vinyl, but because CDs are so cheap anyway, I'll just end up buying the CD most of the time. So, and then as some people who have been following what I do for a long time will know that I didn't do CDs or vinyl up until about 2016. Oh, that's not true, actually. 2015, I've got a big record collection in Australia that I've left there, and I keep meaning to bring it over, and I never do.
It's not that easy from Australia, right? Or you dig a hole. Maybe that's easier.
Might be easier. The reason, I guess, that my problem with that is that I don't want to put it on a slow boat, because I don't want to risk my records being in the top. What are those things called? The big long metal
containers.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for helping me with my English there, Michael. Yeah. So I don't want to be on the top container going round some kind of, I don't know, the Horn of Africa or something, and the sun's beating down and they'll get ruined. So I have to fly them out. Right. So I got to fly them. First thing. Second thing, import duty, because I've lived here for 7 years now. I think you only get to skip import duty in your first year, and I couldn't afford to do it in my first year here. So I'm looking at, a good few grand, maybe more. If I declare them at their full value, it's about 20,000 Australian dollars worth, I think, really. So
yeah. That might be a huge problem. And but maybe back to the very beginning when you said sometimes or quite often you get them both. You get the vinyl and the CD. Probably for listening habits, but do you also do comparisons? What do I like more? Do you compare, or are you absolutely not into this?
I spend my professional life really focusing on comparisons now. This compared to this, side by side comparisons, And so I want my own private listening to be different to my professional work, right? I don't want to be always switched on to that, although it's very hard to switch that part of the brain off. So I guess, for example, this week I bought the new Orb album with David Gilmour. It's called Metallic Spheres Remixed. It's a new remix of this album from 2010, I think. And I pre-ordered the vinyl, and then on the last minute on Friday, I was like, no, I want the CD as well. Get the CD. And I played the record this morning, and I thought it sounded a bit flat and boring, but that's also because the Audiophile 2M Black that I have on my Rega Planar 8, I think is a boring cartridge, and I've had it on several tables, and I just can't get excited about it. Whereas on my Torrens turntable, which is running a Torrens cartridge, and I'm not running that right now, fantastic. So I need to swap those out maybe. So I know there are many different flavors of vinyl even from experience, even what I have here. So I don't ever expect it to be warm or rich necessarily. It just depends upon my playback hardware. And I guess the same to a lesser extent for CDs. I mean,
so that's so interesting because here on those vinyl channels, we compare usually different pressings.
You go deep
against but you, in a way, you go deeper because you also put different equipment into the equation.
Yes,
and that is, of course, also very, very deep. We usually don't have that opportunity that we have several systems we can put on the record, the vinyl, and listen to it. We listen to our usual equipment we have over there, and then we make our judgments. But putting them on different equipment, this is, of course, also very, very interesting. And I can imagine that the results, and you just told us so, are quite different, right?
Well, here's the thing, and I did make a video about this recently, and shout out to Phil Jones in the comments for reminding me of this. It was only a few weeks ago, but I do so much I forget. So basically, I kind of put up the new vinyl version of Stop Making Sense versus the stream or the high-res download, and found that the dynamic range of the vinyl copy was greater, which jives with what I understand that many, many vinyl people tell me is that the master that is cut for the vinyl, by the technical limitations of the format, has to be, well, more or less, most of the time, has to be different. And very often it offers greater dynamic range, which can, but not always, contribute to superior sound quality. So I look at vinyl very often nowadays as, well, two things, actually. The first is that I know it's been sourced from a digital file, from a high-res file. I do know that. I'm not stupid most of the time. But also that the master is different. So when you're talking about comparing formats, it doesn't really add up for me, because you're not really just comparing formats. You're comparing masters as well. And how do you separate the master from the format? And then, as you say, I mean, I rotate through 3 turntables right now. Rega Planar 8 with an Audiophile 2M Black, Torrens TD 1500, I think it is, with a Torrens Taz 1500 MC cartridge. I love that thing, actually. That sounds great. I like it more than the Rega, even though I like the look of the Rega probably a bit more when I'm in my futuristic mental mode. And then I've also got a more sort of everyman turntable, a Cambridge Audio Alva TT2, which I also love, but it's not quite on the same level as the other two. But then again, it's not as expensive, but it's easy to set up and it does Bluetooth. So I'm always rotating, you know, just, I guess I rotate for the sake of my videos so people don't see the same thing over and over and over. But vinyl is almost like it's become my own private enjoyment. So I don't review vinyl stuff. I did have a go at it a couple of years ago, but I got to say, Michael, some vinyl people are very special in the comments, you know.
They are.
And they are.
And not always that easy, right?
No, they're not. And I just, even though I made one video about this turntable with this car, excuse me, versus this turntable with this car. And I get people, you know, you can always tell, I hate to say this, but you can always tell, I don't want to say boomers, but people of a boomer inclination when they write, you are not comparing apples to apples, you are comparing apples to oranges, because younger people don't say that, right? So I can always peg, like I can always hear my dad in those comments. I'm sorry to say it, but it's just like, so I know the mindset behind it. It's like that, oh God, I don't want to say grumpy old timey vinyl people, but there are a lot of them out there, and they have a lot of knowledge and experience as well, but their delivery sometimes is a little bit off. You know, they're very keen to get their point across. And anyway, I don't want to be having a go at people.
But John, remember how long those vinyl lovers fought to get their well-deserved reputation back. Imagine, we are talking. Yeah.
Is it? Well, I don't know if it's reputation. I mean, the format has almost by accident. I don't think it was from any sort of, I hate to say this, but I don't think it's from any sort of groundswell of community support that brought vinyl back. I just think it just became very slowly cool again, just very slowly, because, and I'll tell you why I think this is because there's a time window. Something needs to disappear, and it needs to disappear almost completely for, let's say, 5 years or 10 years, before it becomes that sort of, before it develops retro appeal. So that the CD isn't there yet. It's going to take a few years, even though it might come back sooner rather than later because of the acceleration of streaming. But I think vinyl came back because it almost completely vanished. A bit like ashtrays and smoking.
I don't know if I do agree. Let's try.
Okay.
I think that vinyl did something that has never ever occurred before. A format that has gone and comes back, gone.
Yes.
And comes back that strong. Give me another example if you can.
I can't, but I can give you something that I think might be on the up again, which is not really a good thing, is smoking. So smoking in certain Western countries, it rose for the first time last year, for the first time in like 20 years or something crazy like that. So I look at that and go, okay, well, maybe that's because it was so uncool and it sort of almost, I wouldn't say disappeared, but like a little bit for a certain time. I just think things need to be just either invisible or be on the brink of extinction. And then people go, no, hang on a minute, these are really cool. I mean, I got back into vinyl in 2015. I own no records between 1992 and 2015. And I started I was just curious because I hadn't experienced it for a long time.
We are almost on the same page here. I started 2016, early 2016 to get back into vinyl. And my reason, I give you my reason, and maybe it goes hand in hand with yours, or it's completely different. I already was into my hi-fi equipment, but I streamed. I had my huge Festplatte. Help me out here. My
Festplatte. I know what a platte is. Like your hard drives.
Hard drives. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
With thousands and thousands and thousands of records. I had my Nime and I had my Einstein equipment, and then I streamed via my iPad and listened to Bob Dylan, then switched to Neil Young, then David Bowie, then Ortega, and whatever. And everybody told me special Volker Bohlmeier told me, Michael, one day you will get back into vinyl. I said, why? He said, because at the very end, you cannot reach what vinyl, the sound of vinyl and the quality of vinyl can give you. I said, no, I do it. I will do it. And then at a certain point, when I listened to a specific equipment, it was Neil Young in the at the cellar door. And then I heard the audience, and then I realized, no, I will not reach it with streaming. I won't. And then I decided to go back into vinyl. I might be completely wrong, and you might be in total disagreement, but that is my take. I think when it comes to the absolute top end of sound, of sound quality, vinyl is very, very, very special.
See, I hear this loads, and my experience with and many people might consider my selection of turntables that I've just rattled off to be quite modest, but other people would think, oh no, John owns, some, let's call them mid-tier turntables. I know people who are operating with a Planar 1 might be horrified by my saying the Planar 8 is mid-tier, but it's definitely not these uber high-end Plattenspieler that you see in Munich, right? Now, in listening to either of these three, if I got my best DAC, which I would say is a lot more expensive, it's like 15 grand, and my best CD transport, I think I would get a better sound from that. And even if I pulled the DAC down to say 5, I mean, I don't want to say the numbers, the dollar numbers or the euro numbers are indicative of quality, but I'm trying to just simplify this for the sake of argument, right? Is that I cannot get sound from a vinyl setup here that I would say convincingly, in all respects, bests the sound of a digital format. And I'd also say that streaming has come so far in the last 5 years that it's now sort of, it's approaching that of a CD, but I hate to say it, but not quite in most cases. But tiny slivers of differences here, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is I would sort of resist these conversations because it sucks all the joy out of the room. It's like, oh, I think CDs are this, and I think vinyl's this. And I don't buy vinyl records because the heavens open up and angels start singing. I mean, in fact, like I told you, I was a little bit underwhelmed by the Orb this morning. The sound of that record is just. I buy records because I enjoy all of the things that have been done to death. Big artwork, tea ceremony, all those kinds of things that we don't need to go through again because it's been covered 1,000 times. But those are the reasons I enjoy collecting things. I enjoy owning stuff. And this is
physical media is the thing.
Yes. So when I got back into vinyl in 2015, like you, I just had a music server. Actually back then I had a computer, hard drive, feeding into a DAC, and I had no stuff in my house. I mean, I had some books, but not many. So I think this is something that doesn't get spoken about enough. I think is that one of the reasons people got back into vinyl, and I think we'll do the same with CDs, is because people miss having stuff in their houses. Because I mean, you can see the CDs behind me. You only have to take a look through those, like anybody coming into this apartment, to get a glimpse of who I am as a person. Because you can tell a lot about somebody from thumbing through their records. Like if I was to thumb through your records behind you there, or I've got CDs here and here and here. My records are upstairs, but I'm sure many of your audience would agree that our record collections, especially the music, I'm not talking about the format here, the music itself in a physical format speaks to who we are. It is part of our identity, right? I'm not saying
and also the journey we have been through, I mean, a lot of those record collections are decades old, and is a development of decades, right?
Yeah, not for me though. This big break in between, But I've spent the last, I mean, just to divert CDs for a minute, I've spent the last 4 or 5 years trying to rebuy everything that I used to own on CD, and I'm doing pretty well actually. And now that the deluxe editions come thick and fast, you know. Yeah, as Mus Class says, absolutely, John. Who wants to live in an empty house without character showing? I mean, I realize the irony of me talking about this, because if you look behind me, all you could see is bloody room treatments of acoustic. Now, I do this because it enhances the sound like no other component I've ever bought. You know, obviously, I would much prefer to have pictures on my walls, and then maybe it'd be nice to have a big vinyl rack or more CD racks or something. But I have to kind of counterbalance the two. And for me, especially with my job, the sound quality of the room is fundamental. So I have to sacrifice a little bit there. But like in between, like the ones you see behind me just here, they're between gaps in the acoustic paneling, and then the ones over here are in the gaps, and here and here. So yeah, like I just think it's not like it's nice to have stuff in your house that shows off who you are, as well as photos on the walls and books and things like that. It looks like a culturally rich environment to me.
Totally,
you know,
and it shows that you live in a way, right? You're not just showing off. It also means you do things, you care for things, you curate things, and archive things.
But the other side of this is that I do it because I'm at an age in life now where I can afford to. You know, like in my 20s, I was actually spending lots of money on CDs in my 20s, but that, you know, to the point of sending me broke every week. Whereas now, you know, it's, you know, after years of sort of saving and having financial cushions, I can say, okay, I'm going to buy like a few, you know, a couple of $100 worth of records this month, and then maybe not next month. But do you see what I mean? Like, it's just.
I totally see what you mean, and I totally agree. And I don't. And what I really do like is that this war of the formats is
it's tedious.
It's redundant in a way. Yeah.
Do you know what it is? It's the audiophile equivalent of identity politics. I'm a vinyl guy. I'm a CD guy. Oh, I'm just a streaming kind of guy. You know, it's just like, really. And this is what I'm saying. It does form our identity, and that is a good thing in that way. But we have to guard against being too much of a blowhard on a forum or a Facebook group when we're infusing, right? Like, I guess it works. For me, it works better in this kind of format because you can hear my tone of voice and hear there's a little bit of hopefully a bit of humor in what I'm saying. Right. But in the written word, I would come across as just an uptight British bastard, and I don't want to do that. So I don't know. Somebody asked, actually, they remind me of the panels sold by GIK Acoustics, but not sure if that's where he got them. That's from Justin Peters. No, they're from Vicoustic. I used to have GIK in here, but they were just things that I bought and then hung on the walls myself. This is a full professional Vicoustic fit out that I had done a couple of years ago, and was the best thing I ever did.
And I can just imagine how much this improves the sound quality of every system you place in that room, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Room treatment and speaker placement is vital. It makes such a huge difference. I just experienced that now that my turntable is played in, and we adjusted it a little bit. Wow, the effects are stunning. Yeah. Okay, back to what we want to do. One of your favorite genres is electronica of a certain area. Is that safe to say?
Yes, it is. But can I just preface all of this by saying, and I have to be absolutely crystal clear with your audience, because a lot of my audience miss it all the time. You know, nowadays, when I make a video, right, I'll put in like 20 or 30% electronic music I listen to, and then I'll put in some like weird ass indie bands and rock bands that I like, and then I'll also deliberately throw in an old man audiophile music thing, just to really re-emphasize the point that I don't just listen to electronic music. And in my last video, I put the Eagles in there, which I never bloody listened to, but I did it as a joke, and nobody found it funny. And in fact, I even pulled out a couple of records that I bought. This one I've not even opened yet. This is Neil Young and Crazy Horse live at the Budokan.
Is this within this bootleg series of Neil Young, the new release, right?
It is. I think this was originally out on CD in one of his one of those archive box sets. It was part of that, but only part of that. And then I also bought from the OBC, no less, Michael. He's a bit of a
the Morrissey. You did it, okay? Bonner Drag.
Bonner Drag, which is the original where Morrissey hadn't messed around with the track listing and the versions and things like that. And also, in case
I hope it was convincing.
I haven't actually played it yet. And then this is the problem. I tend to buy more records than I have time to play with. House of Love, the House of Love from the early 90s. They've just reissued the 3 albums they put out on the major label on Fontana in the 90s before they split for the first time. They've just come out like this week. So This is the Butterfly album, which I think most people would know. One of my favorite albums of all time is this. And
wonderful jacket.
But it is. But none of these 3, Michael, are electronic music. So I just want to maybe I'm overstating my case. So just so people don't go, all Darko listens to his electronic music, because that's not true. So yes, 90s electronic. Well, I keep buying electronic music even now, right? As long as it's not the Moody Blues, all else can be forgiven. Do you know, I hear a lot of people talk about the Moody Blues. I don't even know who they are. I know the name, but like, what is this? Is it like 60s rock and roll music? I don't know. I've got no idea. What is it? Pop music?
They're quite cool. They're quite cool. I sent you a record from them.
Oh, no.
I sent you one. Then you make your verdict about them. I think they're quite
really. Cool. I'm sure I can stream it, Michael. I'll save you the trouble. Thank you, though.
You have to experience them on vinyl. Sean.
Oh yes, because you haven't heard it until you've heard it on vinyl. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, but Bowie is one of your favorites, right?
Yes,
one you just want. If Bowie, then vinyl, right? Because it for you, Bowie is the vinyl area, which makes a lot of sense, right?
Well, yes, but even things like Outside, I bought the vinyl of that because it's a phenomenal record, and it was only available as a highlights selection for many years on vinyl. And then I think Music on Vinyl did a double white album version about 5 years ago of the entire thing, and I bought that. That's stuck in Australia. And then here I bought the new, what is it, EMI? Is it EMI Warner's? They did the recent remaster, and I bought that, and that's in a box behind me. I still haven't found time to play it. It's arguably my second favorite Bowie album.
Okay.
Outside, I love it. So, but that's 90s, right? So that's CD era. But
CD,
I'm still buying the vinyl, on those. I have to think about why. Why do I buy them on vinyl?
When it comes to this 90s electronica, I think in many cases you don't have the choice. Probably when it comes to streaming you have, but let's start with one. Maybe you know this from the Warp label.
Absolutely.
This sampler.
Artificial Intelligence Volume 1. Yeah,
exactly. Although I think there is now a reissue from 2022. This is
that the original?
That is the original, of course.
Wow, look at you just waving around the big guns right at the start.
Yes, bigger guns. But that wasn't my intention, man.
I'm sure.
But those are extremely hard to get. And now 2022 we got a reissue, but you haven't had another chance of getting the original. And as you now so bluntly stated, those are heavy hitters. They are not that easy to get, right? Those originals from the 90s, the early Warp stuff.
They're not. And so I think that OG pressing that you have, until 2 months ago when Warp repressed it, I think it was going for a few $100, which is just funny money. And then I would imagine Artificial Intelligence 2 with the red cover on vinyl even now is probably going to be 400 minimum. And almost
this one in a good condition too.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's the difficulty, to get it in a good condition nowadays.
Right.
Well, right.
But I'm delighted that Warp reissued it just to kill the stupid use pricing on them. And what I really like is
John, I'm not that sure if there comes out a reissue. That doesn't mean that the price for the original goes down.
I think it must dent it a little bit. It must do.
Wow. No,
You don't
because
think so?
no, in sometimes it does, but not always, because it also puts out attention to the record. The awareness is higher all of a
See,
sudden.
I would. Okay, so I might, if let's say I got a windfall of €1,000 just out of nowhere,
Yeah.
and the original artificial intelligence, the only one you could buy was the original, and it was going to be €400. I might be like, yeah, maybe. But now with the reissue, and it's not remastered, so it's the same master they've used. If it sounds 99% as good as the original, I'd be more than happy just to drop $30 on that. Thank you very much. Because as I've probably already alluded, it's pride of ownership. It's I don't want to be one of those dudes who's bragging about, I've got that OG pressing from 1947. It's just,
yeah, I'm a bit that guy.
You are, yes, and I can sort of, I've tried it. I know, I bought a couple of OG Bowies through Dave at the OBC, and as cultural artifacts, they're phenomenal. They really are. But I'm struggling to hear how they sound light years ahead compared to the recent reissues. I know, or remasters. We've discussed this on the phone.
Yeah. Okay, light years ahead. Of course, this now is a very subtle and difficult discussion.
Subtle and is how I would describe the differences. Yes, very subtle. Like we're talking like 2 or 3% here and there. But again, it could be that my system is not resolving enough. I don't know. Maybe I need like a 300, 400,000 euro hi-fi system to kind of resolve these differences.
I don't think so, but it's like within the Formula One, those last 2, 3, 4, 5% are really hard to achieve, right?
Absolutely, and I agree with that in terms of like hi-fi hardware. But the difference is the hi-fi hardware chasing that last 2 or 3, 4, 5%, it affects everything you play through it. Whereas when you're going for an OG pressing of a certain album, you're just talking about one record, right?
Absolutely.
And if it's a fine line that you have to walk. I mean, I bought those Bowies because I actually wanted something from that era that is, I guess,
an original, right?
But it's almost like a museum piece. Yeah. It's that level. So I thought, okay, I will splash the cash on those. And I don't know. I've got all of the 70s Bowie releases, the Japanese versions stuck in Australia, because I bought those about 6 months actually before he died. So obviously I got the right time, but I can't play them. So all I can do is brag about them, Michael.
Yeah, this bragging factor. Now I'm afraid to show my records, because I always think now I'm bragging. What?
Well, let me do a brag then. Okay, so I've got something here from the 90s. This is well, really, it's the Orb. I know it says Keiichi Suzuki. He's the main artist on this, but this is called Satellite Serenade, and this singer was made famous by the Orb because of their monstrous Trans-Asian Express remix, which features a David Attenborough sample. So this is like classic Orb in the vein of UF Orb and Ultra World Orb. I think it came out in '94. I've just bought the vinyl just so I could have that one big remix on a record, because the CD is much better value, because it contains the Trans-Asian Express remix, the big long one. It contains a shorter dub version, and then the 2 original versions. To get the 2 original versions, you have to get the other 12-inch of this. But this is also the mispressed second 12-inch that doesn't have, I'm getting really nerdy here, but it doesn't have the Trans-Asian dub, which it says on the sleeve. It's got some other Orb remix.
Get nerdy here. This is the place to get nerdy.
Yeah, but this is, I think one of the reasons I buy electronic music on vinyl sometimes is because I want a slightly softer, slightly fatter sound. And sometimes I don't want that sort of more clinical, I'm not saying all of it is like this, but the more clinical vibe of a digital playback system. I would say that my best CD system is probably somewhere in the middle between those two. But again, I'm really trying hard to fight myself from describing vinyl as warm or rich, all those kind of bullshit things you read from the mainstream press about it, because it's not true. And I think, anyway, we won't go there with that. But like, I just buy records to get a slightly different take on their sound, and that orb is one of them. But also because I know it's pretty rare. I found that in Japan for like $10 about 8 years ago, so I just bought it because I was on a big shopping expedition at Disc Union and just went crazy like I always do. Like, I get that, that, and I thought, I'll just get this as well because I know it's a great track, and one of the orb classics, but like a bit of an under the radar orb classic, I think.
So yeah, for sure is. Yeah, and how come how does it come that you are quite into this 90s electronica? You have been out there clubbing at the time, and it was one of the best times of your life. How comes that you are so fond of this kind of music?
Eine gute Frage. I lived through it. So I got into electronic music through the Orb, actually, through the album UF Orb. And this was way before I started going clubbing. This would be like 91, 92. I bought the Warp Artificial Intelligence 1 and 2. I bought, a lot of those Artificial Intelligence series CDs and kind of just came at it from that ambient home listening angle. And then I got into club music and sort of more what you call proper techno, but like just really in sort of robust sounding dance music. And then I started going out clubbing. So then that fed back into my being able to kind of almost enjoy techno at home. Yeah. Because very often, I mean, maybe you've experienced this, when you buy an album and you're like, not so sure about this. And then you go and see the band live and they play some of the tracks and then the pennies start to drop. And you're like, now I get it. And then you go back home and you play the record again. You go, okay, now I get it. Now I understand it. Right. Right. So that was a common thing.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't been on that many concerts, but I still agree. And of course, and you said a very, very important sentence. You lived through it. And if you live through it and you are in the center in the time period, it also makes this understanding. What did it mean? What did Our Friends Electric mean when it came out? I remember this. This was unbelievable. Of course, if you just hear it through a reissue, never heard it before, it's quite different. And I think it makes a big difference when you have lived through the period.
Well, so for me, the rise of, well, I guess there was always rave in the UK, right? There was always rave music, which is, I guess you call it club music, and it evolved into what we now know it well. Yeah, sort of techno. But the home listening stuff, I guess, was an offshoot of the many chill out rooms that used to be attached to these sort of clubs. So you'd have like two main rooms and a chill out room, and it was sort of spin off from that, I think. And then you get people like, is it Bobby Bird from the Higher Intelligence Agency running his own sort of more downbeat, chill out, sort of cerebral, I don't want to use that word, it sounds snobby, but things in Birmingham and things like that. Whereas Tony Surgeon would run full on techno clubs in Birmingham. So it's just, but anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that for me, that rise of electronic music, both home listening and techno, that was a cultural revolution.
Yes,
because I know there was house music in Detroit, and then there was techno in house music in Chicago, techno in Detroit, both. And I have to say this, black music, right? It came from a sort of black counterculture, and then it got kind of sort of leached into Berlin, and then Manchester, Sheffield, London, Birmingham, and then it came to Europe, and there was nothing like you can't. I mean, I have to think back, but it was far more revolutionary than, say, Britpop, which was just a throwback to the 60s, right? It wasn't a revolution.
In a way, it was. Yes,
it was just a recycling, but it was a kind of it was also the well, it was. Britpop was different actually because it gave nerds and geeks their time in the sun. But I'm not talking about that today. But like with electronic music, it was definitely a cultural movement where people, you get alternate on top of the pops, and mums and dads be like, "What the hell is this noise?" And that's what I want. And I look for that on the TV now. I look for my take on what the hell is this noise, and I see Doja Cat, and I go, What the fuck is this? Like, this is just lame. Sorry if you're into that kind of thing, but like it's got no balls. It's got no, there's no edge to it. There's no There's no fuck you to it.
I exactly agree on a lot of stuff I see there. Yeah. But then I say, oh, maybe you're just too old and you don't understand it. But that's what I always thought. It has no balls. Where is the edge? Why are you so soft and careful?
Yes.
Give it to me. Give it to me. And somehow they don't.
Right. So one of your so Dave OG has written there was for sure a transitional period in the early 90s. The Orb and the Future Sound of London were a big part of that. Actually, do I have a Future Sound of London here? I think I do.
I think I have. Wait, I have one here.
Or maybe I didn't pull. No, actually, maybe I didn't. I've got. Okay, you've got Dead City, which is amazing. I have an original of that, Michael. Believe it or not, like you.
This is an original.
Right. It's a great record.
It is a wonderful record. Wonderful record, yeah.
The Future Sound of London, I still buy pretty much everything they put out.
Yeah.
And they put it on CD. The Environment series, I didn't really buy on vinyl, but I buy so many CDs by them. But their 90s period was great because they were a psychedelic outfit. Like you listen to Dead Cities or Lifeforms or ISDN, psychedelic. They're just great, sort of almost like acid tripping music. How about WAP No Balls? I don't even know what that is. Sorry. But maybe there is some
when Frank says it for sure has balls.
There may be some bands out there who are edgy, and of course they do, but I'm talking about top 10 in the UK or stuff you would see on mainstream TV as pop music, right? In the early 90s, you had like Orbital, The Shaman, and there was a lot of drug connections to this, with Ebenezer Good, and it was a bit iffy, but it did upset a lot of people culturally. And I thought, at the time, I thought it was a good thing. And now I still think it was a good but slightly immature way of doing it. But it was definitely a revolution. I mean, I guess you could go all the way back to Kraftwerk for the genealogy or the DNA of all of this.
Yeah.
But the 90s is where this really sort of blossomed around the world. And because I lived through all of that, as I said, sorry, there's a Feuerwehrwagen going past. There's just so much great electronic music. And I guess if you talk to most people who are into this kind of music, people of my age, they would say the 90s was way better than it is now. But then I think most people of my age would say that, that decade, 3 decades ago was the best for any particular genre, because it's just how we are as we get older, right? But I don't know. I find it very, I find the 90s are very, would you say is the right word furtive? It's a sort of kind of a great period for the growth of this stuff.
I show you 3 records, and I would love to get your reactions of it, because that again shows, in my opinion, what amazing records we have seen in this specific genre. Savors of Paradise.
This is, yes, I flagged this on your shelf, didn't I? Yeah, so this is 95, right? This is Andy Weatherall, Keith Tenniswood, and oh god, I can't remember the other guy's name.
We are not about names here, you can all look this up, but the music and
yeah,
it's wow.
But that's a really
wonderful listening.
Sorry, I'm getting too enthusiastic, because that's a very, very interesting record in that it was very apart from the things that were going on at the time. It is not what you would call bleepy bloopy. It's beats driven. It's almost like it got this sort of reggae underbelly, this dub underbelly, but it never really surfaces apart from on Wilmot. So, but it's a very dark, introspective record.
Yes, and very spooky, right? And
yes. But it's like nothing else that I was really into at the time. I think I just bought it because it was on Warp. Excuse me, sorry.
No I always and you know what's so I cannot imagine that they played this stuff in a club, because this is almost like a concept album. You could sit there and listen through the complete record and enjoy it from the beginning to the end as a story told. This is amazing for this kind of music, in my personal opinion.
Yes, that's the kind of music you would have heard at a chill out room. That kind of thing, like downbeat, just to get away from the kind of the main club events, but obviously they work as standalone albums at home. I do have, Michael, just so we're keeping score, I do have an OG pressing of, well, there's only an OG of that in Australia. I found it in Japan. It wasn't a very good condition, the sleeve, but the vinyl's fine.
Your records over here.
I know, but it's thousands.
Fly by yourself.
Can we go to the comments, because there's some interesting.
Yes,
comments.
of course. Just tell me and I put it up.
Okay, stunt rock confusion.
Yes.
Also, the criminal justice bill was the reaction to that revolution in '94. So the criminal justice bill was introduced in the UK to basically stop people raving under motorway bridges and out in fields in the middle of nowhere. And so the idea was that anything that had repetitive beats could be instantly shut down or outlawed or whatever. And that's the way I roughly remember it. And then Autechre put out an EP, and the third track was just this electronic piece where none of the beats were repetitive. I forget the name of the EP. It's one with the blue cover. I think the track is called Flutter, but I could be wrong. But this was a huge deal at the time, because it felt like the government's really trying. This is what I mean by cultural revolution. It was at a point where the government and it was all in the newspapers, like all these raving kids like interrupting our piece during the night. And I can sort of understand that, but it was everywhere. Like it really was the thing that kids were doing. I went to one under motorway rave and hated it, because I got to be really careful here, because a lot of this stuff was associated with the traveler community, and I don't want to shit talk that at all. I'm just saying it's not my kind of thing. But you get these sort of big groups of travelers. I think Spiral Tribe was one of these. There's a great movie or documentary by a chap called Jeremy Deller. If anybody wants to dig into like the cultural aspect of what I'm talking about, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically him talking to a class.
Can we find it on YouTube? Can we find this documentary on YouTube, John?
I don't. Let me quickly look. I don't think it is on. If I just type Jeremy Deller rave, it's called. Oh, it might be on YouTube. It's called Everybody in the Place: An Incomplete History of Britain, 1984.
Interesting, cool.
So anyway, this is just. I don't want to kind of get too pseudo-political or get it wrong.
No, very, very cool. Spike has a nice question. Thanks for it. What's your take on the trip-hop period in the 90s? Massive Attack, Tricky Portishead.
This is a great question. So, Tricky's first album, Maxinque, still absolutely floors me. That, again, it's a bit like the Haunted Dancehall album in that it's its own little universe. It sounds like nothing else. The first Massive Attack album left me completely cold. Mezzanine, I loved. 100th Window, I quite liked, but I don't think I've really played it enough. Portishead, I was really into at the time, but wouldn't play it now. I just find it too grim sounding. I think it reminds me of what it's like to be in the UK. It's tough and it's depressing. Like
it's like there. Okay, I get it.
It's like a wet winter's afternoon in Crewe or something like that. But I did like some of the stuff. Somebody's also asked about the KLF.
Yes.
Right. Dimitris Manalakos. I'm sorry if I butchered your name there, Dimitris. The KLF, the more I learn about them, the more I have time for them. I always thought that things like
they burn 1 million?
They did burn £1 million. They got a lot of heat for that.
Understandable, right?
They would never get away with it now. They would just be absolutely destroyed, like from a cultural point of view. By the time, it was the 90s, and
the 90s have been crazy in a good way, right? Yeah, KLF was grandiose, right? Yeah.
I think there was just enough technology to do something meaningful at home as a sort of home producer or on a low budget, but not too much to spoil you with the tyranny of choice or the paralysis of so many possibilities, right? And yes, as Terry says, Alex Patterson worked with the KLF. I mean, there's this great story about how Chill Out was originally an Orb album and then became a KLF album. Chill Out is a wonderful record, but the streaming version, it's okay, but they had to take out a whole bunch of samples to get it on the streaming services, so it's not the same as the CD. And when you want to buy the vinyl of Chill Out, you've got to be so careful, because there are some very high quality bootlegs knocking around. Even about a month ago, one popped up in my local record store, and I know it's definitely a bootleg. It hasn't been reissued. But here's the interesting thing, right? Okay, you asked me why I buy certain things on CD and why on vinyl. The KLF's Chill Out, I would not buy on vinyl.
Why?
Too quiet.
Too quiet. Okay.
So I was very nervous about buying some of the Orb stuff on vinyl because there's some very quiet passages. So you want a dead silent pressing, and also
very important.
Right, and so you want a cleaner, a stylus that doesn't, isn't easily troubled by inner groove noise. You're going to pull out an OG here, aren't you, Michael? Here we go.
Yeah, because this.
Oh, you've got that. Yeah, wow.
John.
Okay.
But original.
Yes, original with a black and white sleeve.
But never ever get this.
Why?
It's the vinyl. They made something wrong with the vinyl. It just doesn't work. It's so unbelievable noisy. So get the black version, not the brown version.
I didn't even know that. Oh yes, I did know about this. Yeah, but you have to get the one with the black and white sleeve, because the one with the colored sleeve was sort of a pseudo-official reissue from the mid 2010s, but it doesn't have the Stone and Focus track on it. I think it was actually pressed from the CD.
Exactly, and I think
right.
Stunty and me, we talked about it, and Stunty told me that Madonna had her hands in this second part of the selected ambient works. Well, I don't get the whole complete story together, but you are right. It has something to do with the CD. So the original is this one, but don't get the colored version.
Okay, this is a good tip. But the black version is still going to be like $500.
Oh, if you are lucky, yes. It has been up. It has gone down in price, by the way.
Okay.
It has been up until to $1,500, but now it's
what?
going down. Yeah,
okay, so okay, let's
down.
examine this, right? You can buy the CD for $10, no problem, right? Easy to get. But let's say it's 1,000 for the LP. Now let's say you've got an average turntable of about €1,000 with a 400 cartridge on it, so nothing terrible by any stretch, right?
Of course not.
And let's say you've got, like, I don't know, a $400 phono stage, like a Riga or a Project. I don't think you're going to hear much of a lift, if at all, over the CD. And if you've got a noisy pressing, I think it'll sound worse. I don't see this. I'm sorry, I don't.
No.
I'm not meaning to shit on your vinyl.
No. Because this is so thin ice. This kind of discussions. I think you do, and I think listening to records, listening to vinyl, and I also talked a lot about this kind of things with Liam in the OBC, with Stunty, with a lot of friends here in the VC. It's something that also needs training and experience and education. I know it sounds strange.
No, it's why sommeliers learn how to identify wines. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe something like this. And there are so experienced guys out there. And it's striking how often they came to the same conclusion. All of them has different equipment. And we do this a lot. And I compared the German Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon to the Light Blue Triangle. And a friend of mine did the same. And we came to the damn same conclusion. Or also with other records. This can't be just a coincidence. And also the variety of the hi-fi equipment really is quite different. Okay,
but let's say you're right. Let's say there's a difference in it. Let's call it 10%, which is, I think, quite generous. Is that 10% worth €1,000 for that one album?
That's for yourself to decide.
Absolutely, it is. But I'm saying, I know we're operating in a niche within a niche already here, but I think even amongst diehard vinyl files, €1,000 for one vinyl LP is madness.
Yes, for 99% of the people it is. And who is there to disagree? Of course, it's madness. But
it is.
so many things in life are madness, and that makes life sometimes so amazing.
Sure, but I guess what I'm saying is that I don't know. I mean, I'm super into this kind of music, like really, really into it. And I think €1,000 for that. No way. Absolutely not. Like it's a hard no. But
and who is there to blame you? Nobody.
No, nobody. It's my own personal decision. So
exactly. What, you don't spend 1,000 for this record? What's the matter with you? Nobody will say that.
No, but somebody mentioned, hang on, I'm looking at the comments. Somebody mentioned Planet Dog. And was I into Planet Dog stuff? Yes, I was. Still am. So there's a couple of great Planet Dog compilations. Feed Your Head. There is.
See,
is it worth 1,000? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. Okay. Well, yeah, horses for courses. Okay. I'm a big fan of Banco de Gaia. Who else? Eat Static. I've just bought their reissues. I think I bought them on vinyl as well as CD of Abduction and Implant, because they're phenomenal records, even though the artwork's completely cheesy. So the Planet Dog stuff I absolutely love. Like, great. Because it was the mid-90s, like the home listening electronic music, there was also this strong strand that was concerned with space exploration and aliens and, I don't know, intergalactic travel. There was just this outrospective, like, wonder to it, you know, the themes. And that's all but disappeared from electronic music nowadays. You don't really see it very much. I mean, maybe it was just the naivety of starting, you know, with almost a new genre of music that way. But I don't know. But yeah, Eat Static, Banco de Gaia, wonderful stuff. Somebody mentioned Lamb. I did like, they had that hit with Goreshki, and the first album was okay, but I haven't played that album for years. There was some, I think it was a good Global Communication remix of one of those tracks somewhere, probably on a CD single somewhere. I don't know. I lost track of those guys, so I don't know. Guys and girls. Sorry, have to be gender specific, really.
Yeah, so because someone already mentioned, I want to keep this, but we have to also, I think we have to talk when it comes to the late 90s. We have to talk about this.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a stone cold classic. I mean, there's no arguing. Is that an OG?
That is an OG.
Look at this.
and I also have the the reissue.
I've only got the reissues.
And I made a comparison.
Oh, tell us about that.
Watch my video. No, I'm kidding.
Come on.
The difference is striking. The original has more of everything. I have no explanation for it, but maybe one day you will be in Düsseldorf. Maybe one day.
Yeah, I'll come by, and I would honestly.
And this will be the record I put on both, and I wonder, we will see what you say.
I would love to hear a demo where either the OG is, you know, surpasses the sound quality of the reissue, but also, you know, like a CD versus in your kind of caliber system, Michael, because yours is another number of levels above the stuff that I play with here. But somebody mentioned an album called Skylab No. 1. Holy shit! I never thought anybody knew about that. Put a seashell in your ear and it all comes back. I mean, that's just I think that was Howie B, or Howie B had something to do with that record. That was and still is a great record. I don't know whether it was reissued. I think I've definitely got that on CD, because that would be one that I would have rebought to rebuild my collection. But what kind of question is that? Is that an OG? I mean, somebody has mentioned the French Parisian F Communications label that had wonderful electronic music originated from Fnac Music. That's Musclas. Now, I have something along those lines. I don't know whether this is the original or a repress. It says 93. Oh, maybe repressed to 97. So maybe this is an OG, Michael. Maybe I'm in your big leagues. I don't know. I only bought this EP for one track.
Yeah. And
that is this track here called Acid Eiffel, which is Laurent Garnier's best work by a country mile. This track is one of the great sort of introspective pseudo techno tracks of the 90s. It is just a masterpiece in understatement, and it's just moody and it simmers. It never boils over. It just simmers for 13 minutes. And I first heard it on a compilation called I Love Fuse with a heart on the front, and I had a lot of trouble trying to get the vinyl of this. So, oh God, somebody's mentioning Fragile. I don't know whether he's talking about LSG or not. So yeah, Laurent Garnier's choice is just, I would recommend, if people can find this, it's not on streaming services. There's only some bullshit live version. So you have to get the full 13-minute version. There's a Bedrock 12-inch pressing, which I've also got, but I think this came up and I just was like, okay, I'll just add that to my cart on Discogs and get it and see what turns up. So there are many different ways to get Acid Eiffel, but of all the things so far that I've mentioned today, because Michael doesn't have it, this is the one to get.
Have it. You're right. You're right.
But this is it's such a great track. So I'll hold it up again if I'm full screen.
Please.
That's the back, and then the front. It's called the Choice EP. Oh, sorry, Choice, and it's the Paris EP.
Nice one.
But and the rest of it I don't really love that much. But that Acid Eiffel, my goodness, what a track! Glorious.
Dimitris wants to know what's your take on trance, gore, and jungle.
Oh, trance, very. Not really. The closest I got was I became a huge fan of LSG, which I don't know whether Dave OG was when he was mentioned Fragile before. LSG, I absolutely loved and still love, and the Oliver Lieb stuff is great. But it was more of like tech house meets trance, and then it went into this kind of weird ambient. In the 90s, everybody had this weird ambient phase. So trance, most of it, no. In fact, nearly all of it, apart from LSG. Goa, I didn't really love it. I find that stuff just too fast. And jungle, I think I would be more inclined to be into jungle now than I was in the 90s. I did like a lot of drum and bass. I got sucked in by the LTJ Bookham bandwagon for about 5 minutes. But the real gem in the drum and bass canon is an album by Jacob's Optical Stairway, which came out on RNS in about 95, 96. If you love drum and bass, go and check that out. Also, Spring Hill Jack stuff as well. The first album and the second album, amazing. 68 Million Shades and There Are Strings. Such great records. But just very specific records in those genres that I was into. I was very much electronica, techno, what later became IDM, and generally nothing with vocals. Goldie's Timeless. Yes, kind of. But I just don't love the vocals on that stuff. For me, vocals take me out of the trance. It's a personal thing, right?
Okay. But does it go also with the music has the right to children? There are also vocals. I think they don't.
But they're more samples, though, aren't they, Michael? They're not like it's not singing.
It's
like
different, right?
It's it's more of a.
That would have been my point, right?
I think that's part of the mood rather than detracting from. They did a bit about Future Sound of London. Who did that? I don't know. There's a conversation going on here. I'm not following. Broadcast, I didn't really love. I'm really sorry. Archive, not really a fan of that. 808 State, I almost pulled out one of their albums actually today, but I don't think I did in the end. Michael, is it time for you to bust it?
One last take of I want to have your opinion.
How many are we choosing? I've got 10 here. I don't know whether we can 5 or 10.
Autica?
Yes, wonderful record. That's not an OG, is it? It is. Look at this.
And I both have the original and the reissue.
Yeah.
And I will do a video about it. Maybe same outcome as we will see.
Absolutely brilliant record. I mean, I pulled out. I'm almost. It's like getting naked in the changing rooms in the swimming pool, isn't it, Michael? Like I'm pulling out mine, and it only has 2 LP repress on it. So I just feel like I've got the smallest dick here right now. So.
It's not important.
I bet nobody's ever said that on your live stream before, have they?
But I have heard worse.
So Chiastic Slide, a bit crunchier and a bit more abstract than Amber. I think most people's favorite Auteca record might be Amber, but might be Try Repete, which is mine. But Chiastic Slide I think is the real sleeper. And the last really great Auteca record, in my opinion. I know that's bound to trigger some people, but that's how I really feel about it. Sorry.
Yeah, but I love that you're also into Autechre. I'm not surprised that you
I
are,
love
but
them.
I love it.
How many more can I choose? Because I need to
choose as many as you wish.
Okay, this is another one this is on mute. So a lot of people talk about Speedy J and love his first two albums on Warp, Ginger and G-Spot. Wonderful melodic techno, housey kind of ambient stuff. And then he disappeared for about a year and then came back with the Visceral Assault. This is Public Enemy #1. So you've got the nice Speedy J. This is the aggro Speedy J.
Show it. I don't know it, by the way.
This
Never heard it.
You have to have an iron constitution to listen to this.
Okay.
It's nothing like the one that you've got.
Okay.
I actually, do you know what? I do have the OG with the copper colored vinyl upstairs here.
Yeah.
So I can go to tell you on that one. This is also an OG because it's never been reissued. But this is the most abstract, violent Speedy J album. Maybe a Shocking Hobby that came after this was more violent, but this is
when did it come out, John?
Yeah, 95 or 96. Let me have a look. 97. Okay,
97.
Even later.
So here
yeah.
You have it in your head when this one came out?
That one's 93, I think, or 92.
If Dave is here, he probably knows.
But that was licensed to his Belgian label before, I think, maybe 91, 92, and then Warp licensed it from them, and then did that version, which is a much nicer sleeve and packaging. But my copy of that is noisy. I can't clean it right. I can't get it clean enough. I wish I had I wish Warp would just reissue all of these and I'll buy them all, you know.
Yes, and I think they will do, and there has to do, because Warp is such an important label, and as Mario just stated, it's not represented right now as it should be, in my opinion. They really put out amazing and important stuff for quite long period of time. And I'm also me too. I am in the process. I'm not so well educated in this stuff like you. I'm just starting to get into it again and deeper, and it's such a thrill ride. I really enjoy it, although as I try to get those as OGs, it's not easy to get them. It's, as you can imagine, there hasn't been pressed that many in the 90s. We all know why, right?
No, there weren't. And you know, I'm not mad at myself for not buying them then. I was very much into CDs at that time. And then I even sold most of my CDs in the early 2000s as I ripped them all and then bought them all again. So it's just like moving. It's a cheaper way of moving them across the world, really. One of your regulars, I think, is he called Stunty? Stunt Rock Confusion?
Yes.
Says that I should be muted and cancelled for my comments about Autechre beyond Chiastic Slide.
Yeah, okay, I have to explain this. Stunt Rock Confusion is really, really, really deep into almost any kind of amazing music. I have never met anybody who is so well who knows music like
Michael.
him.
It's okay. He's allowed to be wrong about Autechre. It's fine. You don't have to
yeah, and he loves Autechre. He's an Autechre completionist. He is a completionist when it comes to two bands. I think it's Nurse with Wound and it's Autechre.
Okay, Nurse with Wound tells me a lot. Okay, I mean, it's just, you know, after Chiastic Slide, it's almost like Autechre went, oh, we don't need melodies anymore or consistent rhythms. We just need to go full abstract. And I think they wrote software that helped them produce these tracks. And for me, like, was it Confield or Confeld? I don't know what the name of that album is. Oh, I just can't get into it. Just can't. And then beyond there, Untilted, didn't love that either. The last two, what was the last two they put out a couple of years ago, were quite good. But the thing is like, if you line up all of Autechre's albums, bring the dogs in, Michael. If you line up all of Autechre's albums and say, pick one to play right now, you would have to be, you'd have to be a lunatic to pick those. Are they the NTS? You'd have to be a lunatic to pick those. You'd pick one of the first four albums every time, wouldn't you? Unless you were feeling like really like you wanted to like punish yourself. So then you go one of the NTS sets.
I don't agree.
Michael, it would be boring. It would be boring if we agreed on these things.
Of course,
this is why I like. I like.
I mean, how would it be when we all agree on the same records? Then we probably all stuck to the Beatles, right?
Cornfield is the roughest one, yeah. Sorry, I'm just. Can I just pick up on 2 comments here?
Of course.
Somebody's written Galaxy 500. Yes, I love Galaxy 500, but that's not electronic music. Pet Shop Boys have just announced a vinyl and CD reissue of Relentless, which was the bonus album that came with Very in the 90s. And Zolt Farkas is asking me, are you planning to buy the vinyl in October? I pre-ordered it the day it was announced. I'm like, I'm getting that, even though I've got the bubble pack Very Relentless already. It's one of those like completionist things, but that's another album that I want to hear on vinyl, because there might be a slightly different take of it from a vinyl playback system. It won't sound the same as a digital stream or a CD, and I think those subtle differences, it's a bit like, I guess it's a bit like whiskeys, right? Like you can go and get like different, even from the same distillery, maybe you get like a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they'll be very subtly different. But sometimes you want the 6 because you want to save some cash, and sometimes you want the 10-year-old because you want a luxury experience. I don't know. Totally. It's not an amazing analogy, but it's not the worst either. So,
absolutely. One thing that interests me is, have you been into vinyl at an earlier period of your life? Let's say the 80s.
Yes. I started with it. So when I started getting into music, I started buying vinyl. So like 84, 85, 86, 87. Then my dad bought a CD player. I still kept buying vinyl. And then I think in about 89, I started buying CDs and vinyl for certain things. And then I phased out the vinyl purchases in 1990, I think. So yeah, I was, that's how I know about what some of the for example, a great 80s pop band, right? I know all about all their the limited edition versions they put out on 12 inches. So when I'm searching on Discogs, I know exactly what to look for, because I had them in the 80s, and then I can't remember what I did with them. I think I sold them for pennies or whatever, which is silly, because there was some. But I bought them all again, because it's not like they're hard to get even in good condition, especially in
Luckily
Europe.
Luckily not. Yes.
Right.
Especially the 12-inch, the 45.
Yeah. So like there's a Skull Crusher remix of the track Infected, which I was actually about to try and buy again the other day. And then I went searching upstairs. This is why I alphabetized my vinyl collection a couple of weeks ago. I was like, oh, I've already got it. I've already been through that process of rebuying that one. Joe DiCarlo asks, John, do you like the pork label Fila Brasilia? I love Fila Brasilia up until the album Jump Leads. And then after that, it just became too funky and not weird anymore. But the first 2, maybe 3 Fila Brasilia records are amazing, especially the first 2, Name That Tune. And what was the first one called? It escapes me now, but that really long album with Fila Funk on it, which is more house than anything else, but love them. But yeah, when Steve Cobby got a little bit too, like the Solid Doctor, okay. Heights of Abraham, again, was okay, and I bought those, but I didn't love it as much as, oh God, Old Codes, New Chaos, that's what it's called. Yeah, love that album.
Mouse on Mars, Wolfgang Vogt, a.k.a. Garth, Atom Heart, Christian Vogel.
Mouse on Mars I was into right from the get-go with Volverland, and bought everything up until I think Ideology, and then it got a bit noisy. Gas I only got into recently, because that stuff was out of print for years. So by the time I learned about its existence, you couldn't get it. There was a CD box, but I think about 4 years ago it all got reissued and repressed, and you can buy it pretty easily right now. Atom Heart.
I don't recommend some of those, because maybe I got a bad copy. My copy of my favorite is so noisy. And I tried to do an original. Maybe it's better. Maybe
that's why it's noisy, because it's not an OG, Michael. You know, it's obviously they know who you are.
I never got a noisy original. No. Unlucky not.
So actually, Old Codes, New Chaos from Fila Brasilia is an album that I would love to own on vinyl. And I know it was redone, I think, through Bandcamp about 8 years ago, and I missed it. Name That Tune has been done by is it Music on Vinyl? One of those reissue labels. I think they did that. I think I bought that. I mean, that's pretty easy to get. Though they're starting to get difficult to find in the USA. A little known fact about
the USA. Well, you know, when we talk about clean copies,
right,
almost everything starts to get difficult.
Okay. Well,
any love for David Holmes? My God, you get bombarded with
I know, but
questions.
yes. So the first album, this film's crap. Let's slash the seats. I played that to death in '95. I think it hasn't dated that well. But what's the album he made that sounds like an Ocean's 11 soundtrack about 3 years later? There's lots of kind of like I can't even describe what's it called. It's got "Don't Die Just Yet" on it, and My Mate Paul, and it's bouncy. It's very, very different to this film's crap. So I really liked that at the time in '97, but I do play that every now and again, mainly because the Rune radio throws that up at me quite often. So I really love that. Yeah.
John, do you use any of those records we talked about today for testing equipment?
I don't have any test records. I just play what I generally pick out like 10 or 15 things that I want to listen to in a 2-week window, and then use those, you know, and I try and make sure it's a mix, and I put them into a playlist, and then I play records as well, you know, but yeah, I can't, if anything, if they became test records, the musical content would be ruined for me, because I would play them over and over, and I would never hear them the same again. You know, you got to be sparing.
That's interesting, because I thought what I usually know of people who does a lot of testing of equipment and room treatments, they have specific records. For example, Shelby Lynn. For example, because the voice is dead centered.
Sure, but that's not my kind of music, right? None of that
okay,
audio.
I get that.
But I know that people are going to be upset by me saying this, but I can't stand that kind of music. Not all of it, but I don't, and that's what I hear at hi-fi shows constantly. So, I mean, if I did want to test something, maybe, and I wanted to hear, let's say, Layer Separation, I might pull out. There's a track on this album. I think it's called Silcosian. This is Black Dog Spanners. This is not an OG, Michael. I'm sorry to disappoint you once again.
Right.
This is the reissue from a few months ago.
Yeah.
I was debating this with my friend in LA about whether this is a remaster or not. I don't think it is. He thinks it might be, but I'm not so sure it is. Yeah. But it still sounds pretty good. It's from '95 originally. Yeah. But there's one track on here that I would play that I think would be immune to a degree to repeated listens, right? I once heard Brian Eno talk about one of his favorite albums. I think he was talking about Velvet Underground. I think the self-titled Velvet Underground album with the black sleeve, right? And he said, I love that record. It's one of my favorites of all time, but I've only heard it 3 times. Because I know that it won't recreate that magic for me very often on repeated plays, or something to that effect. And I sort of understand what it means. And maybe some of your audience realize this, and you get a great record and you don't want to wear it out mentally, right? So you don't play it too often, which is why you go and end up playing the NTS Auteca, because you don't want to ruin the sound of Try Ripete or something like that, right?
Yeah, but on the other hand, if you really listen a lot to a record, in a way you don't need to listen to it anymore, because you know, you see it, and that's also a beauty of physical media. You see it, and you just know, and you don't need to listen if you don't really, really want to.
Sure, but there is so much music out there.
Yeah.
And this is one of my biggest pet peeves of the audiophile world, is that if there's let's say this distance represents all of the, let me get my hands right, all of the music ever made, right? Or that's available right now. And then you go to a hi-fi show and you hear this much of that music. Not even, like I couldn't even get my fingers close enough together. Right, because they're always talking about the same bloody records. Now,
okay, what is an audiophile? What do you consider an audiophile?
What, as a person, or the music?
No, what is audiophile to me? My take is, I take my take. So if you consider, and if how it sounds is important to you, and you want to improve it, then you're an audiophile.
If you care about
nothing. If you care about sound, nothing more, nothing less.
That's simple, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I care about the sound in the context of the music that I like, not in the context of somebody else's pre-approved choices, right? So I'm maximizing for this and this stuff I got on my couch here, but not for other stuff. And I guess we could debate this forever, because people go, you have to listen to this particular symphony to really understand what those speakers can do. But like that experience is irrelevant to people like me if we're not playing that kind of music, right? It's like saying you really don't know about anything about Spain unless you've been to these 20 cities, right? But if you've no interest in going to Spain, well, who gives a shit? Like it's irrelevant, right? But you know, but I am very aware of like playing things too often. But I think actually electronic music withstands multiple plays more than, say, vocal music does. I don't know why that is for me. Don't know why. You know, like a song can become
the way you grew up, probably. Yeah.
Maybe, but you know, like there are certain Britpop songs like Pulp's Disco 2000, Blur's Song 2. Although I used to run like an event in Australia like that played this kind of things, but I cannot hear those songs anymore.
You listen to them too much, or what is the reason?
Well, it was just overexposure. So I know,
or maybe you already mentioned this in this stream. Sometimes, for yourself or in general, some things didn't age that well. Maybe that goes.
Yeah, there's that, like the Verve's Urban Hymns, absolute dogshit pile of a record. I'm sorry if you like that record. Sorry, but I can't stand it. I loved it at the time.
Maybe you can't stand this too, or can you? The progressive rock reissues by Steven Wilson. What do you think of it? And
oh God, does Steven Wilson watch this podcast?
No.
Oh, this live stream. So
he probably likely watches your channel, not my channel.
No, I don't think he does. I don't think he likes audiophiles at all. I think I don't know enough about it. I don't like Porcupine Tree. I'm sorry. It's not my thing. Not my thing at all. I like what it's like Eno, right? I don't like all of his music, but I like what he says, and I like his attitude. So I think the last album that I know he's got a new one coming, but the Reality Bites, it just left me cold. It's a pop album, but it's for a certain person who isn't me. But I love his podcast. The album that he does with, I can never remember his name, the other guy from No Man. I think that's really wonderful, the way he talks about music, and is also, you know, passionate in both directions. You know, that's great. Yes. Yeah, that's wonderful, because you can't be wrong about that kind of stuff. I love that, and he
always has to be so open-minded, because what this guy detects and collaborates with, he has to be always been very, very open-minded, right? Which is amazing. Which is a very important thing.
I did like that.
I'm talking Brian Eno here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did buy that. Sorry, you go, Michael.
No, you go. No, I was finished. I just was rambling. More records to show, John?
Yes, I've got another OG. I've got to make good OG here. This is actually quite hard to get. Global Communications remix album called Remotion. This is not very well known, because most people talk about 7614, which is the granddaddy of the Global Communication catalog, but this has got remixes of John Anderson, Chapter House, Warp 69, Reload, which is them anyway, The Grid, the Chapter House, and Nav Katsa. It sounds like 7614, this album. It's very moody. There's actually one track that's a little bit jazz inflected, but again, I got this in Japan because in 2016, I don't think Discogs was evolved enough to buy something reliably when I lived in Australia. But this is just, I'll show the back, sorry. Wonderful, purely ambient. And I think anybody who doesn't like, or thinks they don't like electronic music, could listen to this and go, It's pretty inoffensive, you know. It's not like Speedy J's Public Energy #1. It's nothing like that at all. And yeah, and then let's do another one. Another OG while I'm on an OG roll. So 12-inch from Orbital, the box, which I think is possibly their most interesting release, because it's kind of got this. I heard Paul Hartnell describe it recently in a podcast as this sort of folk horror aspect, and he's right. And I can never really put my finger on it, but a folk horror sort of Wicker Man vibe. And this is the same track, just done in 4 different versions, one with a vocal, I think, on the 4th one. So what I like about this kind of Orbital release is it stands alone as a separate piece of work. But also, this is from this is not the version of the box that's on the album Inside, which is their best album, and I'll fight anybody on that. And I think it's just the best period for Orbital. So this is something that I would play over and over and over again and never tire of it. Never. So let me show you the back.
Yes. Nice.
I need to get myself a little Union Jack with an OG sticker here, Michael. I'm not part of the OG club.
This can be really, really helpful if you have several copies of one record,
right,
John. Really helpful.
I guess it can, yeah. Do you have any?
Is this one a difficult to get record? Do you know this by any chance?
I think this was €5 when I first moved here from a shop that no longer exists. But I would imagine on Discogs, most of the Orbital 12 inches, apart from the really early ones, are easy to get. So,
cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive fan of Orbital until the Altogether was crap. Sorry, I just couldn't get into that. The Blue album was amazing, and then the last couple of records have kind of left me cold a little bit. But Green, Brown, Stabilization, Insides, just all of them, just wonderful. So anything related to that time, so good. I sound like such a boring ass Orbital fan. I know.
You know, I'm really not surprised. This is all. Please don't forget, this is not my native language. But I love to see you are a total enthusiast. You are totally. Are you also enthusiastic when it comes to hi-fi equipment? When you find something, wow, no?
Very, very occasionally, yes. But like, I find it very hard to let my enthusiasm for music. This is the most I've ever enthused about music in public on a online platform ever, because this comes really from the heart, you know. Whereas when I'm doing a video for my channel, I'm having to tell a story, right? Because I'm talking about it's electronic gear or speakers. It's kind of boring intrinsically. So I have to take people on a bit of a journey, and I do try and weave music in where possible. But I also know that because I'm operating in what's called the audiophile space, many of people watching my videos, they have no fucking clue the music that I'm talking about. They've never heard of any of it. And because they've never heard of any of it, some of them think, oh, it's all electronic, because that's all John never listens to. So they just brush it away like that. So this is, again, the reason why I've been putting extra effort into putting sort of old man audiophile cuts in my videos, especially Steely Dan, who I do like. So I find it very easy to talk about music in this context because you're a great host, Michael, and we're like going backwards and forwards. And I have made a couple of videos about music, but I tell you, if I was to make a video about this, right, if I was to kind of just chop this up into my own video, this would not perform very well on my YouTube channel. And it's been like this since forever. Even when I was just writing about hi-fi, you write a post about music and not many people read it. People say it's all about the music. No, it's not. Most of the hi-fi audience want to read about hi-fi gear, and they have like a side interest in music, or that's what the numbers tell us, right? There'll be lots of people out there like me, like you, who are really into music and into hi-fi, and those are the people that I want to talk to, which is why I kind of get agitated when people kind of come in and start whinging about my music selections, because I'm like, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people like me, and just who are just so passionate about this stuff. But
so did I understand you right when I say that you think that a lot of the, in lack for better words, the hi-fi geeks are listening to their equipment and not the music?
I'm not going to go as far as what's Alan Parsons? I'm not going to go that far. I see that quote pop up from people in my comments every now and again. I think that's a bit too dismissive, but I think there is a large, I know, actually, I don't even know how big the portion is, but there's a significant portion of people who are really into the gear and they love going to hi-fi shows and they love playing Shelby Lynn, Diana Krall. I'm not dissing these artists at all, but it's just of a type of person that I see, you know, and that forms the sort of the core of what I see as the kind of the sort of general public hi-fi space. And what I love about YouTube more than, say, the traditional hi-fi press, I mean, there are lots of problems with YouTube, but more than traditional hi-fi press is that we're no longer subjected to the old war horses that get trotted out time and again by gentlemen of a certain age. I've got to say it is usually that thing. And again, I'm not having a go at boomers or anything like that. I mean, I saw this amazing retort actually the other day on Instagram, Michael. Whenever if you're a boomer and you're out there and somebody says to you, "Okay, boomer," and there's some kind of young punk, just fire straight back at them, "Okay, renter." Because you hit them right in the nerve of where they'll never buy a house. You know, I thought it was just peachy. So anyway, yeah,
so for you, hi-fi gear is the vehicle to transport the things you love as good as possible.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that safe to say? Okay.
Yes, it is.
I'm in the same. I'm the same in a way. And when I listen to my equipment and it puts it out that I get goosebumps and hear these nuances, I'm still not listening to my equipment, but I love my equipment that it gives me this experience in combination with the medium, in combination with the music, in combination with the time and the moment. And that's a lovely thing.
Somebody's saying show us Photec modus operandi OG, which I have upstairs, but I almost pulled it out. You're absolutely right. And but the thing is, I think as we get older, the music that really fired us up in our 20s and maybe early 30s, it no longer performs the same magic on us, right? So what we do to fill that gap is we pour in some better sound quality from some better hi-fi gear. So what we're now enjoying is a mix of the music that once fired us up, but now sounds better, right? So it's those, because when you
we listen to it anew in a way, right? It's almost a new listening to the record we listened to 50 times.
Yeah, but we're now caring about how it sounds because that gives us joy, right? So it replenishes some of the joy lost through the erosion of time or overexposure, or just, you know, how records become, as you said earlier, like dated, you know? So it's almost acting as a counterbalance a little bit, but I think that can go too far, but this is just my...
Yeah, but because I always wondered, at least in my case, it might be different in yours or from people here in the gallery. We never ever talked about the quality of a pressing of a record. We never talked about it. We put the record on, we listened to it, we played air guitar, we shaked our head or whatever, and then we listened to the music. We never discussed about the quality of a pressing or how good it sounded. We never did. This is way later. Maybe you gave us the perfect explanation for it.
Well, I think the quality of the pressing has become very important in the last, since vinyl started to come back, right? Because the internet is a wonderful medium for being able to, you know, you buy a vinyl album, you put the needle on, and you go, "Oh, this is a shit pressing," and you post on a forum or a Facebook group, and then somebody else says, "Yeah, this is a shit pressing, mine's the same," and then word spreads like that, right? And then everyone knows that it's a crappy pressing, which is really important to buyers of vinyl have good systems who value a quiet pressing. Not everybody does, obviously, but many people do. I know we're all boring old farts so that we talk about these kinds of things, but I think it's important to us in the context of what we do. So Anand Singh is asking me to tone down my opinions. And my response to that is no. I will not tone down my opinions.
Why should you?
Yeah, why should I? I mean, yes, you can say Audiophile Records are great sounding records from all genres. They are, but to say it's from all genres, that's not true, because most of my taste in music is not represented. Not at all. Like, there's no electronic music from the, let's say, from the 90s, right? Let's say literally like hundreds of thousands of records. None of that is issued as a audiophile release. Only the good sounding stuff. Now, I'm not saying all of this is inferior sounding, but it's just this kind of, I think this is a sort of a gateway to snobbery and a gateway to literally gatekeeping, you know? And no. Somebody else has written, this is Sound Philosophy. I can't even talk. Sound Philosophy. Robert Liner, Visions of the Past OG. Is it worth it? Absolutely, it's worth it. That is a phenomenal record. Like, it's such a great record. It was never, I don't think it's ever been reissued. I know he reissued, or they did a 12-inch of Aquaviva about 6 years ago, which is the sort of pivotal track on that album, and with a remix on the B-side. And I was wondering if they were going to follow it with the reissue of the album, but that never came. So I don't know what's happening with that. But then again, it's Apollo R&S, so who knows where the contractual agreements lie and whatever. But yes, it's a wonderful record. It really is, and so is the Source stuff. Yeah.
There is another rabbit hole, and I promise you, this is the last rabbit hole of the evening. As you are now not at the source, but quite near to the source. What's your take on krautrock, John?
I did buy a couple of Can Live albums about 6 months ago.
You did? Okay, cool.
Yeah, like the live
Stuttgart.
Yes, and what's the other? Buxhaven? I don't know what's called.
Cuxhaven.
Yeah. I described it to my friend Michael Lavorgna at the time as like eating your greens, eating your vegetables. Like, it's just good for you, even if you don't necessarily like it at the time. That's what it's like listening to a Can record. Sorry. You asked. But
then you gave an answer, a brilliant one, by the way.
I mean, Kraftwerk continue to amaze. I saw them last month in Karlsruhe at the castle there.
Yeah, you have been there, right?
It was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. It was just astonishing. And the sound was amazing, and the projections were like all across the front of the Schloss was just phenomenal. So, but for me, Kraftwerk just keep on giving because they updated their sound. So in the 90s, they started to contemporize all those old records and bring.
Yeah, they did something like George Lucas with Star Wars in a way, right?
Yeah, but to me, that was great because I never heard those original albums in the 70s and 80s. Or maybe I'd heard like Robots and Neon Lights or whatever on top 40 countdowns.
The model, probably.
But it always sounded a bit thin and weedy. And then when they started to toughen them up for like a techno audience, and they played Tribal Gathering in the UK in 97 or 8, I think, which was a big techno festival. And I think that was the UK's first experience, this band who kind of contemporized their sound. We're like, wow. So that when Minimum Maximum came out in 2008, that was the first Kraftwerk album, believe it or not, that I ever got into. And I just thought that was astonishing. Like, it still is. So the live 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that came out 4 years ago, again, amazing. I've got that on CD and vinyl because I just think it sounds so good. But I would prefer to listen to those versions than the originals, even though I did buy the original.
Have you listened to those original Kraftwerks for once?
Not OGs, Michael. Not OGs, sorry. But only the represses, the reissues of the colors, which I'm sure are a pale imitation of the originals.
The reissues are different too. Oh, we have quite some things to do when we eventually visit. Quite some things to get into. Very interesting stuff.
Can I pick one more? Am I allowed to pick one more record?
Please.
Okay. I think many people will know this. This is a very ambient, cold record with Twin Peaks samples, I think, in 2 different places. This is Biosphere's Substrata.
Yes.
Michael, this is not an OG. This is from about 5 or 6 years ago.
I don't have the OG either. Has there been an OG, or was it one of the ones who only has been out on CD? I'm not sure, John.
You should shut down your channel immediately, Michael, and go and atone for your sins. But yeah, this is sort of cold Arctic sound. Well, it was recorded in the Arctic, I think. Sounding ambient. It's other. This is another otherworldly album, but also one that people that maybe they listen to Kraftwerk, they've heard some Eno, maybe some Tangerine Dream. They could make the jump to this and not be freaked out. And this also, this is a great record.
What's your take on Petashnik?
See, the thing is, when I first heard this one, I was like, this is not like Petashnik. This is not like Microgravity, which were much more bleepy and techy and precise with beats and things. And this, they took all the beats away. I went, what's he done with the beats? But then you realize this is Geir Jensen's Kid A, I think. Like he was treading a certain path for a few years and he just went whoop, like went this way and took all the beats away and just retreated almost in terms of wanting to be anywhere near a club. Like it's just not like that. So I love the Petashnik and Microgravity, especially Petashnik. But this one is just more otherworldly than those other two, I think.
Because I listened to this one again because I remembered it and I was so amazed. But this time, all of a sudden, I was so fond of it. Maybe I have to listen to it again now. And the one I love right now the most from Biosphere is Petashnik. But those things change.
I mean, I guess I think I picked this one because I don't even have. I've only got Petashnik on CD. I got this one because it's vinyl, and also because I wanted to choose some things that were not too alienating for anybody who's just taking notes right now and wants to go and listen to a few things on streaming. So if I went, if I might indulge very quickly, so that Orb remix I think is on streaming, and that's home listening. That's head nod, right? That's like head nod, trip hop vibe, but it's not really trip hop. Acid Eiffel is a bit more into club territory, so probably put that in pile B. Orteca's Chastic Slide. No, I think that's going to be a bit too much if you're just coming to things from Eno. And
don't underestimate our audience.
No, but I know from experience, people kind of I played one track and they go, what the hell was that? So that, and also the Speedy J, I would put that in pile B as maybe a little bit, save it for later is what I'm saying.
Okay, cool. Good take. Yeah, agree.
The Black Dog sort of straddles the middle between sort of, pile A and pile B. So I'll put it in the middle. Global Communication Remix album is definitely a pile A. That's very easy listening. Orbital is probably again in the middle. Although I don't know, maybe yes. Yeah, well, let's just call it the middle. And then the Biosphere in pile A, very easy listening, So there's at least 3 there that people could kind of punch in now and go, okay, this is good late night, not too intrusive. And, I don't know. This is I mean, it's interesting for me to kind of try and file these things that way or categorize them that way.
Okay, categorize which pile? Give me a pile here. A or B?
That's I'd say that's A. I think most people could dig into that. That's head nod, isn't it? You can kind of go, it's a bit weird. It's a bit like this. It's got that 70s Tales of the Unexpected vibe to it.
True. Pile A or B?
A. Wonderful. I mean, that's a definitive album.
It is.
Ambient techno album. Is that an OG? I can't tell. Is it? I don't know.
No, it is. It is. Oh, a sticker is missing.
What?
It is.
Oh, my goodness me. It's just great. I mean, it's a great album. I mean, would I buy an OG?
It's an absolute highlight. This is a giant of an album in my opinion.
It is. It absolutely is. And the thing is, it's become so boring to say that by any of us, right? You know what I mean? It's like you can hear the tedium just ticking over.
It's true. It's true. Hey, but we're talking about a decade, so there has to be some cool records out there, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Justin Peters has written "No sticker, not an OG." There we go.
No, I just
definitive.
Oh no, I know why. Because this is Belgium, and at the time I bought it, I hadn't have Belgian flags. Now I have.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's not a British pressing, the first one. It's Belgian.
Yes, it's from an RNS Apollo. Does it sound better than the represses, Michael? What? How can this be? Is it because they're closer to the master tape in terms of time?
Oh, there are so many theories. This is one of the most common and most ones you hear. Günther from Minty Vinyl, he said, I think at that time they had the knowledge, they still had the knowledge to put out those amazing records. Maybe so it's only in my head.
So you think the vinyl cutting as a skill has diminished over the years? That could be.
There's no doubt that it is a skill, and there are only very special places, I think, that still have this skill and kept this skill, this artistry. Maybe something like that. Vinyl is a very, very, very special medium in many regards, in my personal opinion. It is, Leonardo da Vinci, this perfect and somehow, and somehow vinyl is a perfect product. The size, the weight, when you touch it, there's something magical about vinyl for me.
Yes, but it stops becoming magical when you want to move house.
Very, very fast.
Very quickly.
Or when you get out of shelf space.
Right, or when you want to move across the world and you have to leave your collection back where you were and start again. I don't mind. I mean, I don't get time to play my records very often, I think that's one of my big frustrations about, I'm not going to complain about my job because that would be very, very self-indulgent, but I don't get enough time to play music. Only on days like this where I kind of get up on a Saturday morning and go, okay, no work for the first few hours. I'm just going to kind of just play a couple of albums, and that's what I did today. But I wish I had more time for that. But anyway, yeah.
Of course, we all do. Maybe there will be a time where we can. We will see.
Yeah, maybe I have to retire.
Yeah, but not so soon. We all love your videos, man.
Oh, it's nice of you to say so, but yeah.
No, they are amazing. They are amazing. You put very much effort into it, and they are always a highlight. And I think this is not too much to say, as your success shows.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, yes, it is a real labor of love. I mean, but I also have to give Olaf immense credit here for being an amazing cameraman and color grader. I mean, I'm doing a lot of that myself nowadays. I mean, way more than I used to, because Olaf used to do all of it, and now I do all the A-roll and some bits of B-roll, and I'll be doing more going forwards. But I'll talk about that at some other point. But it's it's not just a me thing; it's an Olaf thing as well. So, and yes, and somebody's written, and Jana for the ads, yes, and Jana used to do the editing a while back, and is also very helpful in steering me in the right direction with YouTube sometimes. So yeah.
John, almost 2 hours.
Yeah, it's a long time. Sorry.
No, it was lovely. You have been an amazing guest.
It flew by.
And as many in the gallery suggested, we all hope we see you soon back here. It was amazing. It was beautiful to see your enthusiasm for music. That was really, really impressive. I hope you enjoyed it too, your very first live stream.
It really did fly by, the time. Like, I mean, I guess once I get going and talking about music that I think I'm, really enthusiastic about. Yeah, I would love it if you would invite me back at some point. Somebody asked me if I would talk about indie records on rock records. Yes, I would love to, but not yet. If we're going to do this again, Michael, I'd love to do another one on electronic music, even if it is from the 90s, because there's just so much good stuff, so we'll see. You decide, whenever.
Anytime, John, you know this.
And thank you everybody else for watching and leaving interesting comments. I've never done this before, but it's it's really nice when somebody goes, oh, have you heard that? And I go, yes, I have heard that. That's a great,
we did a little discussion before we started this. I told you the gallery will be amazing.
Yes,
in that regard. Thank you all very much. See you soon. Bye.